Folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So this is video 2 for today. This one will be more focused on kind of the prepping and homesteading stuff. Even though if that's not always your thing, please stay tuned because I think this will be some good information for you. If you're wanting my take on the things that are going on with the hurricane in Afghanistan and yada, 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 the video that I released this morning is the one to watch for that also. And you should be able to find it pretty easily here on the channel. Before I get started in this, which is a list of skills that you need to have to survive the things that are getting ready to happen and that are happening right now, I do want to mention something that my wife and I are trying to put together for you folks. In case you haven't noticed, this channel is getting pretty close to hitting 50,000 subscribers. And we are planning on doing a giveaway once we hit that 50,000 mark. And we are still working out the details of that. It will be a live stream show that we do the giveaway on. And what I suspect is that anyone that's involved in that live stream, that's watching the live stream and that's participating, will be eligible for the giveaway. But the cool thing is the stuff that we're kind of gathering up. We've gone a little overboard. But this past weekend at the here we go, Ozarks Homesteading Expo, we picked up several things that are produced locally here in the Ozarks. Some salves and some elderberry cordial and some soap, some really nice stuff. We have some coffee and we might have a few other things. We'll have different prizes. So let's get that subscriber list up to at least 50,000. I'm suspecting that we'll do this maybe this coming weekend, depending on how many people either this weekend or next weekend is probably how it'll work out to be. And then we'll have a cool giveaway for a bunch of you folks to watch and get some stuff sent to you. So I talk often about how you need to develop the skills to survive. That it's not just about buying stuff and sticking it in your closet. I mean, there's an important thing there to do that, to have food and supplies, very important. You also want to develop your mind, the mental toughness to survive and persevere through horrible things that we might possibly go through, or just tough times. It doesn't even have to be the end of the world apocalypse, just tough times. We have to have that mental strength to get through it. But you also are going to need to start developing skills. Many of you have already done that. Some of you are in the process of working on that. Skills are important, folks. It's unfortunate that I even have to say this, but it's because of our modernness as a people that everything is all digital and it's all on our little phones, and we don't, so many people don't really have the skills that it takes to survive, skills that our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents, they just had, and it was just a given that people knew how to do a lot of these things. So folks, skills are important when it comes to preparedness and survival.
I don't even have any good skills. Like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills.
So I have here 11 that I have picked out. These aren't the only ones, okay? There's many others. But I figured this is a pretty good starting point. So we're gonna go through these 11 skills that you should try to develop. Some of these a lot of these you can just buy books and learn how to do the stuff through the reading. I know that books isn't the best way. Hands-on training is generally always the best. But if you get involved in a community, if you meet other like-minded people, it's very possible that some of these things they know how to do, or someone in that group would know how to do. And so that way you can learn from them and share this knowledge. And maybe you know some of these and you can pass it on to others. So that's why building a community is important, because of stuff like this, we can learn from each other. So the first one is one that I kind of like. This is my little thing that I like. So I had to put it as number 1, even though it's not number 1. It's the first one. Primitive bushcraft skills. Not too many people today know this kind of stuff. Even in my generation and older, a lot of boys especially went to Boy Scouts and groups like Scouting. different scouting groups. And through those groups, many of us were introduced to primitive bushcraft skills. Doing things the old ways. Think of the old mountain men that would go up into the mountains by themselves for months and sometimes even years, trapping furs, isolated from the entire rest of the world and surviving on their own. And then coming down, maybe every year to sell their furs and go back up into the mountains and do it all over again. Those skills that they had to survive, those were primitive bushcraft skills. You can buy books on this. It's not difficult to learn, but you just need to know how to do it. You need to know how to start a fire without matches. I mean, yes. Do I carry Bic lighters and all of my gear and stuff? Of course. I buy Bic lighters. Probably should buy them in bulk. I have other ways to start a fire. I have the little metal matches, and I have the ferro rods, and I have flint and steel. I have all that. But of course, Bic lighters is by far the easiest way to start a fire. Well, what do you do when you don't have one? What do you do when they run out? What do you do when you can't buy anymore and you've used up all of them? You need to know how to start a fire without matches. You need to know how to use more modern ways to start it, and you need to know primitive ways, a bow and drill, flint and steel, things like that. I'm telling you, here on the property, I'm starting fires all the time. We're always burning brush or burning trash or something, burning leaves. So you need to know how to start a fire. Build a shelter from nature. This is another bushcraft skill. Being able to go out here and utilize what is growing naturally to build you some kind of shelter, a shelter that's good enough to keep you dry in the rain, to help add some warmth to you when you're out in the cold, something to protect you. You need to know how to do that kind of stuff. Cooking without utensils. This is something else that's a bushcraft skill. These are really basic things, and there's many other bushcraft skills, knot tying, lashing, things like that. Again, there's bushcraft books. If you go to used bookstores and thrift stores, look for older Boy Scout manuals. Stuff from the 1950s, 1960s. You can find those pretty common, usually for just a few dollars. The old Boy Scout manuals, and they're filled with that. In fact, I've joked, and it's true though. I picked up a Boy Scout manual from 1915. It's like a World War I era Boy Scout manual, and I'm telling you, that Boy Scout manual is better than most modern survival manuals. So look for that kind of stuff. Okay, number 2, cooking and baking. Now, I know some of you are like, who doesn't know how to cook? Well, you'd be surprised that there's a lot of people that don't know how to cook. But I'm not just talking about normal cooking and baking. I'm talking about more old school, old-fashioned, simple cooking. A lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people know how to get on their phone and get on a recipe website or watch a video. But how many people know how to bake bread from scratch or cook from what grows in your garden, and how to utilize the spices and the flavorings in your garden and that grows around you to cook with? Do you know how to cook and bake bread with the hard wheat that you've bought? A lot of us preppers, we buy bulk wheat, and then our idea is to grind it into flour. Well, have you ever actually done that? Because it's a little different than just going and buying wheat from the store, because it's full whole wheat flour. Do you know how to produce your own yeast from the wild and use it in baking? These are skills that you need to develop. They're very important, and they're not difficult. Along with that, number 3 is canning and preserving. You need to know how to preserve your food. You can grow all kinds of food, raise all kinds of animals and stuff, but if you don't know how to preserve the food that you have grown and that you've raised, you're going to get real hungry in the middle of the wintertime. So you need to know how to preserve it, canning it, drying it, dehydrating it, salting and preserving meats. And there's a lot of different methods, pickling, fermenting. These are different methods that you can use to preserve your foods. You need to know how to do it. It's very important. This one's kind of fun for some of us. Some of us don't know how to do this. So fishing and hunting. Fishing and hunting is number 4. Again, some of you love doing that. Others have never done it before. You should know how to do it, and you should have some gear to do it. You should have some basic fishing gear. You should have some basic fishing knowledge. This is stuff that you can go and practice now, most places. And it's good. It's fun to do it, but it's also a good skill to have, because if you've never fished before in your life, odds are it's not going to be as easy as you think to just go out there and catch a fish. There's a little skill to it. Same way with hunting. You don't just walk out in the woods like they do on TV and there's animals everywhere. You have to develop that skill. So I would suggest practicing it now. The next two, 5 and 6, basic blacksmith skills, basic carpentry skills. Carpentry is pretty easy. Most anyone can pick up a hammer and a nail and a saw, but you still need to work on that and develop those skills and have the proper tools to do that. Blacksmithing is a little different. It's not as difficult as you think, and it's not that difficult to build the equipment or to acquire the equipment that you need to blacksmith. It's not as difficult as you think. It's one of those skills that, and I'm not saying that it's easy, because we're talking basic blacksmith skills. This is something that most men knew how to do, the basic stuff. I mean, most men didn't know how to make things, create things, and do all the great stuff that a good master blacksmith can do. But a lot of men back in the old days, they could make horseshoes for their horses, and they could do basic hinges and, mend, fix something, straighten something out, just basic skills, stuff that you can learn too, because it could become very important someday on your homestead if things get really bad. Sewing, another long forgotten skill is sewing. My mother, my grandmothers, everyone sewed when I was a kid. Everyone knew how to do it, especially all the ladies. Nowadays, not too many people know how to do it. Everything is disposable. So if, your clothes start to tear or they need to be mended, you throw them in the trash and you go and buy new ones. But you need to learn how to sew. Even you men, don't think that this is only a woman's skill, okay? Everyone should know how to mend your clothes, do basic sewing skills, basic mending skills. Everyone should have a basic sewing kit in their prepping gear. Some needle, thread, scissors, different things. You can buy a basic sewing kit from places like Walmart and Target, and they're not too expensive. Number 8, self-defense, shooting, archery. I kind of all lumped it together because it's all very similar. The shooting and the archery is also part of the hunting that I mentioned earlier. You need to know how to defend yourself. I don't talk about this in great length on this channel all the time, but it is extremely important. I don't talk about it a lot because everybody else does. And there's tons and tons of channels on YouTube talking about this kind of stuff. But it is important. It's important to have the tools to defend yourself. It's important to know how to use those tools properly to defend yourself. It's important to train on a semi-regular basis, not just with those tools, but also with your hands, developing the skills with your hands. You can take classes for this. This is something that's very easy in most places to find classes, whether it's, self-defense skills just with your hands, shooting skills, even archery. It's not hard to do, but it is something that you need to practice to get good at. All right, next one, number 9, raising livestock and then butchering the livestock. A lot of you like the idea of raising it, but not too many people enjoy the idea of butchering it. If you don't know how to butcher the stuff, you don't know how to put it up, preserve it, take care of it all on your own, you have really no business in having it. I understand that not all livestock is meant to be eaten. And if that's the case for you, that you have livestock that is, meant for wool or just milk or whatever, I guess that's fine. But even in those cases, usually the offspring is eaten, is a food source. So you need to know how to do this. It's not complicated. It really isn't, but it is a skill that you need to develop. I've seen classes at times that are being held by different, maybe like different ag groups and stuff. They will hold classes or homesteading groups. You can certainly buy books on it. You can get videos on it. It's important. And then you need the tools to do that. You need to have the proper knives and the things that you need to process your animals. Because, well, there's no point in having them if you don't really know how to process them. And don't just depend upon sending your animals off to a processor to have it done. Already in most places, those meat processing places, even the small ones, they're backed up months and months. And there's no guarantee at some point that you'll be able to get into them, get your animal into them to have it processed. So you need to learn to do it on your own if at all possible. All right, number 10. I threw this on here, but I actually think it is important. Soap making and candle making. I know they're two different things, but they are kind of, connected. Soap making and candle making. Most people nowadays don't know how to do this. And I know that you can stock up on a lot of candles, you can stock up on soap, but you really need to learn how to do it on your own. It's not hard to do, especially if you raise your own bees or you have access to bees, so that you have wax and you can make candles. That's really easy if you have access to that. As far as soap making, if you have raised animals and process animals for food, they produce a fat. And then if you use wood heat for your home, the ash that's produced from the burning wood basically are the two main and really only necessary components of making lye soap. It's not really that hard, folks, and our ancestors did it all the time. People did their own soap making all the time. All these little homesteads all over the country, 100 years ago, 150, 200 years ago, everyone made their own soap. It's not hard. It's a skill we needed to learn to develop again. Last but not least is first aid and herbalism. You need to know basic first aid. You need to know how to take care of the basic things that's going to happen around here. Maybe even to the extent of stitching up a basic wound, setting a broken bone, for the most part, putting it in some type of cast, whether it's temporary or permanent, to set it so that it's stabilized. You need to know how to do basic wound care. These are things that you may not necessarily use right now because you would just go to a hospital or an ER or a doctor, but you might need it someday in the future where you don't have access to those things. So I would suggest you learn them. And then also something that I promote a lot on here is herbalism. Get to know your plants, okay? Yes, it's good to stock up on all these different kinds of medicines, over-the-counter medicines, cough medicines, cold medicines, all that kind of stuff. But you can't do it all, and they don't last forever. The best way is to learn what grows around you and learn how to use it to heal your body. You would be surprised what is out here and what you can use it for. If you don't know anything about it, you need to get some books and read on it. You need to watch some videos. There's home correspondence, type courses that you can take to learn basic, home herbalism. It's not complicated, folks. It really isn't. You just need to learn what the plants are. That's the number one thing, is to be able to identify the plants. Once you can identify it, it's not that hard to learn what the plant can be used for. And then number 3, the last most important thing with herbalism is learning how to process it. There's different ways, different parts of the plant. You can say, well, plant A does this. Well, which part of the plant does that? Is it the flowers, the leaves, the roots, whatever? Learn how to do plant medicine. You don't have to be a master herbalist, folks. You don't have to know every plant around you. That's what books are for. It's what plant identification books are for. I certainly don't know every plant around me. That's why I keep a plant identification book handy. So folks, learn your skills. Learn your skills. It's important. I recommend devoting at least a couple of hours a week to developing these skills and others. Let me know the ones that you're working on currently, things that you're trying to get better at. That way it'll encourage others that watch the channel to also do the same. Thank you all for watching. Catch you in the next video.